Today is a very special day. Deanna Kaiser, stand up. Celebrating birthday number 39.
Hey!
Happy birthday to you. Come on. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deanna. Okay, big ending, big ending. Happy birthday to you. And I hope you have a good nap this afternoon.
I'm leaving for Spain, Portugal, and Morocco.
Oh, you're leaving? She's leaving for Spain, Portugal, and Morocco tomorrow. So, okay, we have a brand new member. Diane Newsom, come on down. You get your official name tag. No, she doesn't. We don't make her come down. All right. We have a bunch of guests today. So you guys put your thinking caps on and try to keep up here. First of all, Gary and Sherry Oradat, back there. Welcome back. They actually visited before and actually came back, y'all. You know. So welcome, Gary and Sherry. Good to have you here. Welcome. Travis and Katrina Bennett, right up here on the front row. See, now these folks right up front row, they want to get a front row seat. Raise your hand. Welcome. Good to have you here. And then a couple rows back, we have, I wrote it down, Deborah and Robert Gutierrez, right? Raise your hand. All right. And last but certainly not least, our good friends, Dr. Bob and Becky Shaw, back there on the back row. Now, see, the Bennetts sit on the front row, and the Shaws sit on the back row. I don't know. You can read into that. Gary, you gonna? Jerry? Come on. Oh, you want to make it from there? No, you need to come up here to the microphone. Jerry's got a special announcement for us, and while he's coming, let me just remind you, Wednesday night disciple courses start this week, and there's a list of them over there. You should have received an email with the list, and I've attached it also to our weekly email. But if you don't, there's a list of the courses over there. There's something for everybody. Jerry, what do you have to share with us? You can do this. Sign up for ESL on Thursday nights. Come on, just plug in. Couple of hours, you just come and eat snacks. That's all you do, you know. So the list is going to be over there. Please, guys, you guys are good at volunteering, and especially for things like this when you serve and then you don't serve anymore. So it's good. So please sign up for that. Jerry.
Thank you, Larry. First of all, it's good to be back. I went to North Carolina to celebrate my mother's 90th birthday, and I visited the church there. I want you to know how much we're blessed to have a great church. But sometimes I take it for granted, but when you go to, not that there was anything wrong, but there's something special about Travis, and especially our class. I miss you guys. All right. What I wanted to announce is our 9th annual Shoot for Mercy fundraiser that's coming up September 19th. I have some save the dates up here. If any of you shoot a shotgun, I invite you to be a part, get your team together, or if you would like to donate or volunteer, any of those things there, I'd like to invite you to do that. It's September the 19th, and it's actually going to be held at the new facility down Chisholm Trail. It's pretty close to Joshua, kind of that area, but just off the Chisholm Trail Parkway. And a great facility. We've been working on this for a while. You guys have always been a part of it. Our goal was to hit 100,000 in fundraising. This is all for the operations of the Mercy Clinic here on campus, and we're already at about 82,000. So anything that you can do to help us, we appreciate it.
Don't leave out the fact that this is air conditioned.
Yeah. In the past, we've eaten dust and temperatures. And our very own Larry's going to be doing the national anthem. So Thank you. It's registration starts at 8. It'll go about 12, 1 o'clock. Here's cards. Up here.
We would love to have a team, 4 shooters from this class. Wouldn't that be fun? So if you want to shoot, I know some guys last year did. Their shoulders have not recovered yet, so they will not be shooting. But we'd love to have a team. That'd be four shooters, wouldn't it? Great. Okay. One other announcement. As you know, we're starting a new class with our esteemed Rick Yount teaching on September 6th. Several of you have responded already, and we thank you for that. If there's anyone else in here that's planning on going to that class and you haven't let us know specifically, please do that, because Rick wants to know who's coming. And by the way, Rick, did you notice that door had been soundproofed? Yes. We requested that door be soundproof. We did not want Rick's members laughing at Wayne's jokes, or vice versa. You know, it just doesn't work too well when that happens. All right, Susan. I know you guys missed this, so we're going to sing. We got a choir in here. Join me in singing. And I won't even make you stand. We'll do it old style. You can stay in your seat. In my life, Lord, be glorified, be glorified. In my life, Lord, be glorified today. In your church, Lord, be glorified, be glorified. In your church, Lord, be glorified today. Speak, O Lord, as we come to you to receive the food of your holy word. Take your truth, plant it deep in us, shape and fashion us in your likeness. The light of Christ seen today in our acts of love and our deeds of faith. Speak, O Lord, and fulfill in us all your purposes for your glory. Thank you, choir. Well done. Now, to say this. Now, I was going to introduce Ruth by saying that it was a chick flick, but I won't do that. But I like it. I said I was going to introduce Ruth by saying it was a chick flick, but I won't do that because that would be great. So I didn't say that. Why are you up here?
Good morning. How many of you actually enjoyed English in school? Wow, more than enjoyed math, for sure. Okay. Oh, English. So you enjoyed the writing or the reading? Both. Okay, you enjoyed diagramming sense. That's a lonely boat you're sailing in. Okay. All right, so you may remember a story called A Tale of Two Cities, written by Charles Dickens. So we're going to not talk about that. We're talking today about a tale of two women. A tale of two women. Now, in the tale of two cities, at least that's what the summary says, that someone dies, sacrifices himself at the end of the story. In the tale of two women, not only does someone or multiple people die at the beginning of the story, but all hope and vision dies also. And that can be as devastating as the physical loss. To live without hope. And yet that is where we are as we start early on the story. I'm going to turn the volume off on this. That's my fan club's calling me. Okay. All right, so we're going to begin there. Now, this story takes place during the period of the Judges. We thought we were through with Judges. Well, we're through with the whacking and killing and some of the things that went on in Judges, but this setting of this story is during that same time period. Now, it came about in the days when the judges governed or judged that there was a famine in the land. Now, why would there have been a famine? That causes famine in a hurry if it has no rain. And in the scripture, when there was a famine, what was usually the cause? Disobedience. Sin. Disobedience. Going their own way. And God sought to get the attention of those people who are living waywardly. And so a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah got out of Dodge. Said he went to sojourn in the land of Moab. So rather than suffer where he was, he left for where there might be more resources with his wife and his two sons. And the name of the man was Elimelech. Elimelech. I just couldn't help but think of that song. Elimelech, Elimelech, Elimelech. Okay. All right. And the name of his wife was Naomi. And the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites of Bethlehem in Judah. So, in our scale drawing of the Holy Land, Moab was down here. Okay? And Bethlehem would have been somewhere up here. And this would have been what sea? Yeah, that dead one. No life. The Dead Sea there. So they go to a different location, outside of the land of Israel. And they got there. Then Elimelech, and they entered the land of Moab. All right, so who was Moab? Really? Moab was the offspring of Lot's relationship with one of his daughters. They recall that after Sodom and Gomorrah, and God wiped them all out, and the two daughters said, well, we don't have anybody that we can even marry with. And they picked up a scheme to get their dad, Lot, drunk. And when they did that, in his drunken state, he had relationship with each of his daughters. And Moab was an offspring of that relationship. The Moabites and the Ammonites. Don't confuse the Ammonites with the Amorites. They might have been distant third cousins. I don't know where the Amorites came from. But anyway, they were. So you've got a number of those folks, but it is Moab and Ammon were the offspring of Lot. And so Moab has a relationship, a distant relationship with Israel. Well, how's that possible? Remember that Lot was Abraham's nephew. So Lot's dad and Abraham were brothers. Okay, so there is a distant familial relationship. So Moab, and God had promised land to Lot's offspring, had given them territory. To the result that here comes Israel coming out of Egypt. All right, and so they come here, and they come here, and they come here, and they come here and ask if they can pass through Moab's land. Who won't touch anything, who won't drink anything, and who really believes that? But anyway, he said, we'll stay on the road, we won't get your crops, anything. And Moab says, come on in. No, they refused. They refused, and so they had to go on and try to find help somewhere else. So there wasn't a warm relationship between Moab had not acted kindly toward Israel. All right, so that's the background and setting. But that's the area that Elimelech goes to. And then he gets there and dies. And she's left with 2 sons. So a widow and her 2 boys are trying to make their way in a strange land. And they took for themselves Moabite women as wives. Was that okay with God? Now, they weren't in the land of Canaan. They weren't supposed to intermarry with the Canaanite women. But they do marry these Moabite women. Then both Mahlon and Chilion also died. And the woman was bereft of her 2 children and her husband. So not only is Naomi a widow, she now is childless. She has these 2 daughters-in-law. And so she arose that she might return from the land of Moab. So at this point, she heard there that, hey, that God had visited, and there actually might be food to eat back over in the homeland. Now, I don't know how she got that news. Fox wasn't around to give it to her. But some way she found out that there might be food back in the home country. And so she purposes to go. Naomi says to her 2 daughters-in-law, go return each of you to her mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. May the Lord grant that you may find rest, each in the house of her husband. So she's actually hopeful for their future, that they would be able to remarry. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said, no, we will surely return with you to your people. We're going with you. But Naomi said, return, my daughters. Why should you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb, that they may be your husbands? Now remember, there was a statute or a direction that if a man died without children, that his brother was to bear a child by the widow, in order that the dead brother's name could be carried forward. Well, there are no brothers to carry that forward here. And so thus it makes sense why she said, do I have sons? Would you wait that long? I'm too old. Even if I had a husband and they gave birth tonight and bear sons, would you wait till they were grown? I mean, that's a long time to wait as a widow. Would you therefore refrain from marrying? In verse 13, no, my daughters, for it is harder for me than for you. Actually, it literally means it is more bitter for me than for you. For the hand of the Lord has gone forth against me. We'll let the Jordan River and the Dead Sea be the dividing line here as we are talking. So now we have Naomi. And Naomi does what? She blames God for her situation in life. For the hand of the Lord has done this. God did this to me. Perhaps you've known of people who, when something difficult happened in their life, were looking for somebody to blame. And in this case, Naomi points the finger at God. And they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her. Then she said, Naomi, verse 15, behold, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Now, do you remember who the god of the Moabites was? Moab. I didn't either, so I looked it up. Shemash. That was their alien god that they worshipped. And so Naomi encourages them to both to go back to the respective homes. Back to the old ways. Yeah. But Ruth said, do not urge me to leave you or turn from following you, for where I go, for where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Why are these words preserved for us? So that people will have something to read on the wedding day. Yeah. Yeah, but this is the context of this. It's not talking about a wedding. Now, this is not what that is about. And that's her, and said, where you die, I will die. There I will be buried. Thus may the Lord do to me, and worse, if anything but death parts you and me. So Ruth sells out in her relationship to Naomi. I mean, total surrender there, aligning herself. What does Orpah do? Yeah, oh, sorry, Orpah. Now, I don't think anybody's blaming Orpah. And in fact, it's really curious what some have done with regard to Orpah. They even suggest that Orpah was the ancient descendant, ancestor of Goliath. She chose the convenient route to go back to the comfortable place in her people. Ruth chose the route of hardship, and ultimately Ruth is an ancestor of David. So when you have David and Goliath, by extension, you got Ruth and Orpah duking it out on the battlefield. That is not in the Bible. Okay? But that was preached recently. And it made such an impression on one leader that he was repeating the story as though it were true. I would caution against that. If the Bible does not affirm it, I would not allow ancient tradition, ancient other writings to become the standard of truth. Let God be true, and then other people can make up their own stories. But that story is out there, and if you Google it, you'll find it. Doesn't make it right just because you find it on Google. I don't want to burst your bubble about that. Not everything you look up on the internet is true. Okay. All right, if we can get past it now. So Ruth goes with her. When she saw, in verse 18, when Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said no more to her. And so what does she do? Ruth, instead of blaming God, Ruth surrenders. to whatever and whatever this God is that Naomi follows. Your God will be my God. And she doesn't say it with a bitter spirit, or it's surely not reflected. If she struggled with it, she wasn't reflected in the words that were recorded for us. So they both went until they came to Bethlehem. And when it came about, they had come to Bethlehem, that all the city was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" Now, Bethlehem can't be too large for them the word to get around town, and for them to remember, because it had been at least 10 years that they were there. They'd been gone from the area for a while. And she, verse 20, Naomi said to them, "Do not call me Naomi." It means pleasant. Call me Mara. And that word means bitter. For the Almighty has dealt with me bitterly. So what happened in Moab, Naomi is carrying as a wound. And she's letting it be known to whom she casts blame for the circumstances of her life. She's bitter. Now, how do you find out if a person is bitter? I'm sorry? Okay, yeah, what they say, what comes out their mouth, and she just says, "I'm bitter." She's up front with it. How else do we know the person is bitter? By their actions. Well, how does a bitter person act? Angry? Withdrawn? Does a bitter spirit reflect in the countenance? Maybe not all the time. Some people are really good at masking. But leave enough time that what's on the inside, that's what? It comes out. And Naomi is just announcing her state in life. I'm bitter. And not only am I bitter, I'm not just bitter about circumstances. I'm bitter at the one who is above and beyond the circumstances. Which leads to this premise that all bitterness is ultimately toward God. You said, "No, I'm not bitter at God, I'm bitter at Joe." Anybody named Joe in here? I've seen that. Okay. Now, I'm bitter at Joe. Well, who allowed Joe to wound you? Who permitted the circumstances of life that caused you? So bitterness is a defilement of my soul and spirit that results if I don't thank God for every circumstance and situation and person that He, meaning God, has allowed into my life. I'm not saying God caused this, that He permitted it. Yes, sir.
That makes you wonder why.
Yeah, unless you remembered Naomi before she got bitter. I remember that in the inside there really was a warm relationship at one time. But it does raise that question. And the longer you're around the bitter person, the more excited you are to see them. I mean, you want to, yeah, there they come. Woo! What are they going to gripe about today? They're murmuring, complaining. And their murmuring, complaining won't just be about the singular circumstance. It will spread into other areas because bitterness is described, equated in the Scripture with wormwood. Wormwood. The wormwood was a plant from which they extracted an alcoholic substance, but it was really toxic. You didn't drink much of it or you died. I mean, it was lethal stuff. And the bitter spirit is like, and someone described bitterness that way, that bitterness is like drinking poison. and waiting for the other person to die or the other circumstances. Who's the one that's wounded? I am. But I'm pushing that off somewhere else. And that's where Naomi is. Just call me Mara. I don't know if she was down to the courthouse, had her name changed, or this is just the name she just went by. So Naomi returned, and with her Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, who returned from the land of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of barley harvest. Okay, so it's harvest time. Now, what's important about that? All right, there's food. What else? There might be work. During harvest time, you get people to work. I mean, growing up in a farming community, and it came in November, I've had classmates that were looking for what? They were looking to work. At where? At the cotton gins. They were harvesting the cotton. They would work, and just dirty work, but it was work. It was money that it had to do with the harvesting of the crop. And they're at the harvesting of the barley. And chapter 2. Now Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, an acquaintance of her husband, a man of great wealth of the family of Elimelech. So this guy is a relative to Elimelech, which was Naomi's former husband, whose name was Boaz. Well, what do you know about Boaz? All right, it says that he was wealthy. Outside of the book of Ruth, what would we know about Boaz? That's right. It's identified in Matthew chapter 1. Wow. Boaz made it into the New Testament. So if I get to let's get to Matthew 1. Look down through there. You got this person born to that person, that person born to somebody else. And up in, in verse 4, into Ram was born Amminadab, and into Amminadab Nahshon, into Nahshon Salmon, and to Salmon was born Boaz by who? Rahab. That's some family tree. Rahab. And to Boaz was born Obed by Ruth. So, Boaz had a heritage. He was of the tribe of Judah. He has that heritage of his own, but it's not a spotless heritage as we think of spotless being. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Please let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after one in whose sight I may find favor." And he said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she departed and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. So what is she doing? She's cleaning, she's stealing. Was it her field? Was it her crop? She's stealing. Yes, ma'am. So that must make it right? Oh, you say it's culturally okay, whether it was right or not. Okay. It's what? Which of the 10 Commandments is that? All right, so in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19, verses 19 and 20, and I think again in Leviticus 23, that God gave direction that they were not to harvest all the way to the corners of the field. I mean, getting every scrap they can and go back and pick up anything that was left over after. They were to leave it for the poor of the land that they might have sustenance. But what was required of the poor if they were to get it? Yeah, they had to work. They had to work for it. They weren't just getting a handout. This was not a government handout to them. This is an opportunity to work and get reward from that. And so she is following the culture. She is following what was identified in the law of God in Leviticus, and she was in following that direction. She was going. Now, I don't know how she would have known the law unless. Must have. She would have had no idea of this stipulation, because to the natural man, it didn't make a lot of sense not to go back through. I mean, I can remember seeing cotton harvested in Memphis, and you look out there and said, man, there's a lot of cotton still out there. I mean, you just didn't pick up everything. You just go through and pick up that stuff. You could earn a little money yourself there. But she's following the culture. She's following the provision of the law and gathering up the gleanings, what they dropped, what they didn't get through the first time. And she happened to come to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz. Now, literally, it says she happened to come. Literally, it means her chance chanced upon. You talk about a coincidence. Yeah, wow, what luck was that? How could that happen in 100 years? Depends on your worldview. But she came to the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, and he's identified for us in verse 1. Now, behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, may the Lord be with you. And they said to him, may the Lord bless you. That says something about the character of Boaz. How many bosses do you know come to the field, and that's how they greet the workers? May the Lord bless you. May the Lord be. But that's what he does. And Boaz said to his servant who's in charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? Servant in charge, who was appointed over the reapers, answered, said, she is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the land of Moab. And she said, please let me glean and gather after the reapers among the sheaves. So she did not assume it. She asked permission to follow along and pick up the gleanings. Then she came and remained from her to morning until now. She'd been sitting in the house for a little while. So he gives a good report about her. I mean, she's sitting out of the 105 heat right now. And then y'all hunting for shade yesterday? Oh, yeah. Shade in the house? Yes, well, that's where I was sitting. And then Boaz said to Ruth, listen carefully, my daughter. Do not go glean in another field. And don't go on from this one. You stay here with my maids. This field belongs to me. You stay here and work. Let your eyes be on the field which they reap. Go after them. Indeed, I have commanded the servants not to touch you. When you're thirsty, you go to the water jars. You make yourself at home. You drink from what the servants draw. Then she fell to the ground, fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor in your sight? What have I done that would merit this kind of kindness? Not only allowing me to do this, but really making a place for me to do this. And Boaz answered and said, all that you've done for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband has been fully reported to me, and how you left your father and your mother and the land of your birth and came to a people that you did not previously know. May the Lord reward your work and your wages be full from who? May your wages be full from the Lord. Boaz diverts the gratitude to God. He doesn't take that to himself. he focuses on the Lord. May the Lord reward you. And the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to seek refuge. Where had she come for refuge? Under the God of Israel himself. So he keeps that on a spiritual plane. It isn't about Boaz making himself look good. This is about Boaz reflecting her attention or deflecting it unto the Lord. Then she said, if I found favor in your sight, my Lord, I have found favor, for you have comforted me. Indeed, you've spoken kindly to your maidservant. Though I'm not like one of your maidservants. At mealtime, Boaz said, come here. You can eat of the bread dipped in the vinegar. The bread and the vinegar. So she's invited to be a part of the crew, if you will, and to be fed. And then Boaz says what? Verse 15. All right. You let her glean wherever she's going to go. You let her. Don't insult her. Oh, everything he could do. So who is going to have to do the gleaning? He did not tell Ruth, go to the house and I'll have grain delivered to your house. I guess he could have. No, she still was engaged in the work of bringing that in. And then he says to them, you purposely pull out some of it. You make sure that there's plenty to pick up around. So she gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. Don't you just love having ephahs around your house? That's how you measure things. I know it is. You ladies, when you start cooking, give me an ephah of flour. The ephah, how much was that? 26. 6/10 of a bushel. What would you reduce that, please? No, the part of you said about the bushel. 3/5. Thank you. You don't get credit for the answer unless you reduce it all the way down. All right, 3/5 of a bushel. So some of you have seen a bushel of peaches. That's quite a thing. So 3/5, 60% of that. That's how much she beat out in a day. That's pretty good day's work. And she did that, and she took it up and went into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she gleaned. She took out and gave to Naomi what she had left. After she was satisfied, her mother-in-law said, where did you glean? May he who took notice of you be blessed. She told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked with and said, the name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz. Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, may he be blessed of the Lord, who has not withdrawn his kindness to the living and to the dead. Other than what God's done to me, I'm glad he hadn't abandoned everybody else. She still not acknowledged the hand of God in her own life. Well, except to blame God. And Naomi said, the man is our relative. He's one of our closest relatives. And Ruth said, furthermore, he said, you should stay close to my servants until they finish all my harvest. Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with this maize, lest others fall upon you in another field. So she stayed close by the maids of Boaz in order to glean until the end of the barley harvest and the wheat harvest, and she lived with her mother-in-law. So she surrenders, and Ruth works. She doesn't sit around waiting for somebody else to help her. She takes it upon herself. Now, Naomi goes from blaming God to at least blessing God in some circumstances. She doesn't bless God for her circumstance, but she said, well, God hadn't abandoned everybody. in order for this to be occurring. So I ask you, at this point in the story, which woman has the greatest need? And in fact, though the actions track, the book is named for her daughter-in-law, there's much that's going on here. But just like the tale of two cities, you will not know what happens unless you come back next week. But I do leave you with this question. Is there any circumstance, situation, person in your life toward whom or about whom you are bitter, and ultimately, whether you said it or not, you're bitter toward the Lord for allowing it to happen? If so, pray and reflect this week. Let's trust the Lord to give guidance. How do we get out of this mess? I received an email this weekend. Came to my work email. I saw it this morning. And it would indicate that this person is harboring an issue from 30 years ago. And they're trying to set things up to pursue. I wouldn't call it justice. I think I would call it revenge. Which says they've never dealt with the situation as God would have them to deal with it. That's a long time to carry a grudge. And to actually flame it. It might have been a simmering coal for 30 years, but trying to flame it, get enough air into it to get it into a flame. So I would appreciate your prayers for me as I try to respond to the email. And don't make myself part of the problem. And in some way try to be a part of the solution. Let's pray. Lord, the only people in this room who don't know anything about bitterness are those who've either dealt with it your way or they just haven't recognized it for what it is in their lives. We've called it hurt. We've called it a wound. We've called it many things in our lives, but really haven't addressed it as an issue of the heart. And my prayer is that through the story of Ruth, not only will we be blessed by the story of redemption that is here, we'd be blessed by clear hearts in our own right as we deal with matters in a way that honors you. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.